And welcome back to Starting Out in CNC. Part 1 was out yesterday, Part 3 will be out tomorrow, and Part 2, well, that's coming up next. So that's the boxes unpacked, and what we have is everything extremely clearly labelled on every single piece as to what it is, where it goes and what it's used for. It comes with a very well written and very clear printed manual for the initial mechanical assembly, and subsequent instructions are via the Ooznest website on PDFs, so a laptop or an iPad would be extremely useful for that. I'm not going to shoot much video on the initial mechanical assembly because Ooznest have already done one of these. They have a whole host of training videos both on their website and on their YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Ooznest. So I'm not going to cover the mechanical assembly in too much detail because they've literally just done an excellent, I think it's an hour and a half long YouTube video on every single nut and bolt. How it's all put together. So I won't repeat that. I'll shoot a few bits and pieces along the way, but come back to me in a little while, and we'll have hopefully the initial mechanical assembly done, ready to start threading some wires through. So I've got my little work area here all cleared. Got a little wooden tray to keep all the freshly built bits in. You start with the wheels, and you need 48, and this give you 49. So putting one of those to one side, and really it's just a question of ploughing through the manual. This is the kind of drudge work that isn't of a huge amount of interest to you. But one thing I did want to mention just quickly is that Ooznest have supplied this to me for the purpose of this review. I don't own it. It's a review unit. I do have the option to buy it at the end of the review period, depending on how useful I think it is. But I don't own it. Ooznest are absolutely not supplying one in the hope of a favourable review. This is just me, taking us all through a journey on how a total novice might get to grips with something like this. So it provides invaluable information for the guys at Ooznest as well, and hopefully valuable information for you guys as well if you're thinking about buying one of these. The other thing, of course, is that Ryan at Ooznest said that he reckons it'd be about 12 hours in order to get this up and cutting. I suspect that's 12 hours if you know what you're doing. If I'm following the manual and also taking video, I think it might take a little bit longer than that, but I'm going to try and keep a track of how long each process takes me to do, just to keep you abreast of exactly how long I spend on it. Anyway, I'm going to crack on in my nice clear work area and get these wheels built, and then we'll get on with some of the other bits and pieces. Ooznest do tell you what you need in terms of tools as well. They don't supply any, but you need an 8mm spanner, a 4mm and 2.5mm hex keys, little Allen keys. But that's it for now. I'm going to press on, get these wheels made, and we'll come back a little bit later on. So halfway through just making these little wheels, I just mentioned it's an excellent time while you're doing this work to be listening to a podcast, catching up on perhaps some old episodes of the UK's favourite joinery podcast. So halfway through I've got sore thumbs. Some of these are quite hard to push home. Some of them go in really easily, but some of them take a little bit more effort. But anyway, halfway through. It's taken about 10 minutes so far, so not too bad. Another 5 or 10 minutes and we should have all the wheels done. We can move on to the Y-plate assembly. Woo. So just about down to the last couple now. It's about 20 minutes all told to do these. It's not difficult, not an onerous task. Some of these do take a bit more pressure than others to get in. One thing I did find in the packet, these little wheels and bearings come in, you get a couple of extra parts. There are 2 shims in there, and you put one of those to one side for later, and a little lock nut which apparently we can discard. On one of these I hadn't realised that the 2 shims were stuck together, and I ended up getting 2 shims inside between the bearings, and fairly obviously it wouldn't compress together properly. So that's just something to watch out for. I did have to sort of drift that out with a hammer very gently. So yeah, just keep an eye out for that. But otherwise, it's pretty straightforward. So there we are, end of day one proper, fairly solid 6 hours since I last talked to you. I have very sore thumbs, but there we have the basics of the mechanical parts of a CNC machine. A couple of slight sort of questions on it. As the manual states, as while you're making part of it, it says you're much easier to put the stepper, the limit stop switch thing in now rather than do it later, but I'm not too sure where the wire is supposed to go. You don't get to that part of the manual until you're doing the electric, so I'm not too sure if it's in the right place or not. And the other slight concern, which is a bit more worrying, is all of these are running really nicely and smoothly. You can just twist the stepper motors and everything runs really well. But this one, the cross one, the X, that's much stiffer to move. I'm slightly concerned that either it'll overload the motor or reduce the life. So that's, although it would be a pain to get at this gubbins again to change them, it may well be worth doing. Oh, certainly worth asking the question anyway. But that's it so far for day one of the mechanical build. I'll be back tomorrow, or in the next video, as we call it, doing whatever's next in the manual. There's a few little bits and pieces still in the printed manual, and then we get on to some of the other bits and pieces. We've got to put the base support in for the spoiler board and all that sort of stuff. But that's, in principle, the CNC gantry and cross beams and everything sorted. So yeah, fingers crossed. Well, fingers crossed. The next phase goes to plan as well. I had a bit of a chat with the boys at Ooznest, and they've confirmed that what's happening here isn't right, is not normal. So the guys at Ooznest suggested a couple of things that I try, which is sort of loosening off the nuts and seeing if the little blocks would reseat themselves, and they haven't. So they're sending out an extra couple of parts for me, which is very kind of them. This is almost certainly my fault. I don't think I cross-threaded them, but they felt stiff going in, and I should have done something about it yesterday, to be honest. But it was late, and I was excited about getting it all done and all that. Anyway, this is one of the benefits of working with local companies, British companies, when we're in Britain. Of course, you can get a fast response time from the guys like this. So what it does mean, though, is that there's not much point in doing much more to this. I think I'm going to be able to get to this without stripping everything apart, which is good. But it would be much more of a headache to do this after I've got all the wiring in and everything else. So I'm going to just pause this for a day or so until those extra bits come in, and I will shoot some video on changing these over, just in case it happens to you, because it's I deliberately haven't shown much of the build of this because it's been covered in other videos that the guys at Ooznest have done. But I think I'll shoot video on this, and hopefully I'll be able to remedy it. But that's where we are for now. We've reached a little bit of a pause. Join me in the next one when hopefully we'll be back on track.